Awesome. So it's so nice to have you here, Krysta. Welcome to the Wellness Crew podcast show.
Thanks for having me.
Oh, you're so welcome. It's so nice to be connected. You all the way in Canada, me in Australia. So it's so great that we found the time. And it was just great that we had a mutual friend that, thought that it would be great for us to connect so we can share your work with the world, essentially. Um, so yeah, I'd love to start the show off by talking about, if it's okay, your journey and sharing a little bit about your story and what kind of got you into working as a functional nutritionist.
So, my story actually starts back when I was a kid. My dad was very much into nutrition and what's in the food that we eat and all that sort of stuff. I actually started making kombucha with him when I was probably 8 years old, which is definitely way before anybody had heard of it.
Yeah.
And yeah, it just kind of grew from there. When I was 13, 14, he was always looking at, all the different chemicals in our foods and what they make flavors out of. I remember he used to tell me
Mm.
like what banana flavor is, and I can't remember, but it's not good stuff. And it just grew from there. So, I mean, even though we did try to eat healthy back then, there was lots of margarine and pasta
Mm.
and that sort of thing. And I did end up getting eczema when I was about 19
Mm.
and went to the doctor. Of course, she prescribed steroid creams, but I never, did the chemical route to begin with. I always tried to look for natural solutions. So I never used them. And went on the internet looking for solutions, how to clear eczema, whatever I could try and find. And even then, it was a lot of surface stuff. It was a lot of oatmeal baths or aloe vera gel, stuff like that. When they started mentioning bleach baths, I'd run away.
Oh, yes. Yep.
And yeah, there was never really a solution that got rid of it. It just kind of helped it. And then November 2018, my dad came across a documentary on the microbiome. And he's like, you got to watch this. It sounds super awesome. So we went through it together, and it was exactly what we had been looking for. Just
Mm.
kind of the information that we followed in our own hearts that we knew was right, but there was never really a word for it. There was never a definition for it. And yeah, so that was how I got into it. And from there, I'm like, okay, I need to learn more about this because it was microbiome and functional medicine. So I'm like, okay, I'm going to learn more. And I became a certified functional nutritionist.
Oh, that is such an amazing story. I think, what kind of leads us on our path and our journey to what we do for work is something that we've gone through ourselves.
Yeah.
Um, yeah. And that's just so powerful because you can resonate with your clients, what they're going through, and all of that stuff. I know, like, I've had psoriasis for quite a few years now, and I managed to settle it down. And now I know what my triggers are and how it flares up and why it flares up. But I
Right.
was the same as you. I never went to the chemist to buy any steroid creams. Like, whenever the doctor would say, why don't you do this? I'm just like, no. So I stopped going to the GP for it because they're just going to prescribe that stuff.
Yeah.
Um,
Unfortunately.
Unfortunately, and when I did try it out, and I just found that it just got worse, and it irritated me more. So, yeah, I'm just like you. Natural approach all the way. All the
Exactly. And, a lot of people say, oh, that stuff doesn't work, but a lot of times it works better than the chemicals and the prescriptions. So, yeah.
100%. And it's about getting to the root cause, which we are gonna talk about, which I'm so
Right.
excited because I love this topic about
Um,
the microbiome. So, let's get straight into it. So, do you mind explaining to the audience what are the microbiome and why are they so important when creating a healthy gut environment?
so the microbiome, I mean, it can be on your skin, your ears, your nose, like it's everywhere. But a lot of the times when I'm focusing on it, I'm focusing on the gut microbiome, which is all the bacteria, fungi, viruses, archaea, all the microorganisms that live in our large intestine. And they can be super important. Well, they are super important just because of everything that they do for us. And research has found out, they control a lot of different systems in our body and help us in different ways. And they're really just starting to scratch the surface. They don't understand fully how much the microbiome controls, but we do know that they digest fibers, they control our metabolism, they support our immune system, they create vitamins for us, they create a lot of the neurotransmitters, like probably about 90% of our serotonin. So, super important to have a microbiome. We would not be alive without it. We need them to kind of make up for our deficiencies in our human bodies. And yeah, we just need them.
Yeah. I think too, like, once you kinda get down into that rabbit hole of learning about the gut and the microbiome, there's just so much to learn, and you kind of think, "Wow, I didn't know that it helps with that or it contributes
Mhm.
to that." I remember I was just mind blown when I was just learning about it. Um,
Yeah, I mean, it really goes on and on. Just like I said, it's not just in our gut, it's on our skin as
yeah.
well. So they're affecting our skin and all of that.
Oh, it's so crazy. So I know like a lot of people have probably heard the term leaky gut, especially now because everyone kind of talks about the gut. So what how do we get a leaky gut and what are the symptoms?
So for me, I definitely see a lot of um, causes being the prescriptions that we take, a lot of antibiotics. I go a lot in the trainings that I do. I talk about how we have a very dependent need on our antibiotics, and I think that it's gone a little bit overboard, and that certainly contributes to the destruction of our microbiome. um, Other things can be stress, for sure, contributes, as well as gluten. And I mean, it can be a bit controversial in some cases, but I definitely see that gluten contributes to all people, not just people with celiac or Crohn's. Um, if you're eating it all the time, every day, breakfast, lunch, and dinner, you're having cereal and sandwiches and pasta. It's definitely not giving time for your gut to heal, so that contributes to the leaky gut as well. Um, yeah, so those are the causes, and then, sorry, what was the next part?
And the symptoms, like when you have a client that comes to you, what are some of the symptoms and you're like, "Okay, yep, that's a leaky gut."
Yeah, and I think that's a lot of where doctors struggle, is because it literally contributes to everything. Like, it can be anywhere from headaches to fatigue to digestion issues to chronic illnesses like eczema and psoriasis, and even things like Alzheimer's, dementia,
Mm.
heart attacks it can even contribute to. So the conditions really run the gamut, and that's where a lot of people and doctors struggle with saying, okay, this is what's causing it.
Yeah, and it's crazy that just having a leaky gut can cause all of that. Um,
Yeah.
it's just crazy. I know, like, the same I never took antibiotics when I was a child. I don't know, my mum was probably the same. She was just like, "You don't need them." But growing up, after having the kids and all of, everything that happens when you get older, I did take a couple of courses of antibiotics, and that just kind of threw me out. And I really didn't understand how powerful they were until I was taking them myself and how they
Okay.
affected my body. I kinda just come out like it just affects my skin all the time. I come out in yeah, it's just crazy, like, how powerful they are and what they really wipe out too, the good stuff. They wipe out the good stuff.
Yeah. I mean, they're antibiotics, they're against life, and they just wipe out everything, no matter what's in its path.
Yeah, yep. And I know you kinda touched on, how you said that, when we do have a leaky gut, it, you know creates all of this havoc in our body. But one thing that I'd love for you to explain is inflammation. And because I know you touched on how, a leaky gut can cause psoriasis and eczema and other skin conditions, but how does inflammation, like, how does that contribute to everything? And how is it formed, if you can explain that to everyone?
Yeah. So, I mean, essentially, when we get leaky gut, and that's when, the cells between the lining open up and it just lets everything in. So, you've got, undigested food particles, you've got prescription drugs if you're taking anything that's getting in there, and just everything that's not supposed to be in your bloodstream is going in your bloodstream. And that's where it can travel everywhere. So, these bad particles and microbes, because of course the microbes get out there, they can travel anywhere. And depending on what you may have kind of a weak link in. So when I work with people, I definitely do genetic testing, because that can contribute in the sense that um, just because you may be susceptible to something doesn't necessarily mean you'll get it. But if you do have these weak links, that's where something might pop up. So if you have an issue with your skin, then inflammation will attack the skin. If you have problems with your thyroid, maybe that inflammation will
Mm.
be directed to the thyroid. And it can really just cause anything to flare up.
Yeah. Wow. That's just crazy. I don't know. Every time I think about it, I'm just like, just this one little thing can create so much havoc. And I think that that's why I love, you know, doing the podcast is I never knew any of this stuff. Like, once I started learning more and more, and you can go into a rabbit hole with this topic, with with
Yeah.
the gut and microbiome. But once I learned more and more and more, I'm like, oh my goodness, everyone needs to know about this. Like, everyone needs to understand the effect of the food that they're eating and how it
Oh,
affects their
yeah.
gut. And stress, like, that's just another topic in itself, and how that affects the gut as well. So I think, like, I know a lot of people hear the words like inflammation and leaky gut being thrown around, but not understanding how it affects their body, and what it actually does inside their body too. You'd probably see that with clients as well. They probably get mind blown every time you talk to them about it.
Yeah, like it's all linked, People are like, "Oh, well, I have yeast infections." Well, that yeast is growing in your gut, which is causing an imbalance, which is getting into your bloodstream and going at different places. Maybe you have heart palpitations, like it just spreads everywhere.
Yeah, 100%. And something that I noticed too as well is, I know you mentioned, like, when we are talking about the symptoms of a leaky gut too. I noticed too that, like, my moods get affected too when I'm out of balance. Like, it's just crazy how it affects everything: mind, gut, body, everything inside of us.
Yeah.
Um,
And
so yeah, go on.
it's very much like, I mean, because I specifically help people with eczema and psoriasis, there's so many people that see it as an external condition, so they're trying
Mhm.
to treat it externally. And when I say like, hey, this is an external manifestation of an internal problem, they're like, what?
Yeah. Yeah, 100, and I think too, like, because I'm sure even yourself, you had the eczema, and, just, like, it is uncomfortable, to
Mhm.
see it all the time, and you're like, "When is this ever gonna get better?" I think, and we even spoke about the mindset part of it too, and how you're kinda delving into the mindset of,
Yeah.
yeah, like, working with your clients, because I think that that's one of the most important thing, is just, like, believing and understanding that it's gonna work. Because it can get frustrating when, you're doing all of this gut work and you're not seeing any results. Um, I remember, like, it took me quite a while. There must have been a lot of inflammation that was going on in there because it took me quite a while to get to, the place that I am now, but just really believing that, it is gonna work. Um, it is an internal thing and just little changes. Like I noticed that first my sleep got better, then it was my skin, like little steps.
Yeah. Yeah, it um, definitely has like a I can't think of the word, but affects different things. So yeah, it's if you have a skin condition, it's going to affect your sleep because you're scratching and itching all night. It's going to affect your emotions and mood because you're stressed out and hating your body for doing this to you. And yeah, it's very fascinating how all of it is controlled with the stress hormones. And then, of course, if you're taking steroids, which are
Mhm.
stress hormones. So
Yeah.
it's quite fascinating how it's all linked. Yeah.
Oh, wow. Well, thank you so much for coming on and sharing all of this information. Is there anything that you wanted to add or share that we may have missed out on?
Um, yeah, I definitely just think that people do need to focus on the mindset part of it because it really is a matter of believing that you can get rid of it and believing that what you're doing to help it is going to work. If you're thinking, oh, this food and mindset woo woo crap's not going to do anything, then it's not going to do anything. So, yeah, there's definitely a mindset part to focus on as well.
Yeah, 100%. I remember when I was working with my nutritionist, she was telling me to do all this mindset stuff. Like this was earlier on in my journey and I'd never delved into any of that
Yeah,
stuff. And I was just like, "Oh, I don't need that. Like, just give me the food that I need to eat and the supplements, and I'll be fine." But when I started implementing the mindset practices and the deep breathing and all of that stuff, calming myself down, that's when I noticed a massive change. Um,
yeah. I was actually one of those people that was like super against affirmations. I'm like, this is the stupidest thing on earth. And now I love them. I say them every day. So, yeah, I
yeah.
mean, we can always change our mindset around everything.
100%. And I think too, like going through this journey, like you just eventually have to find out what works for you. So I know what my triggers are. I know that I can only
Mhm.
get to this point and then I've got to stop what I'm doing and I need to rest or else things are just going to explode. Like my gut is going to start messing up. So it's just finding that routine, those practices that just support you.
Yeah,
And I'm
for
sure
sure.
like that's what you help your clients with, helping them find what works for them as well.
Yeah, it's very tough, trying to do it yourself and struggling with a skin condition on your own. Nobody understands. A lot of people I've heard people, walking into the store or meeting people and, they're saying, "Ew, gross. Are you contagious?" And I'm just like,
Mm,
the things that people say is,
yeah.
yeah, you definitely need the support. And it just helps to have someone to go through it with you and not have to be like, oh, I got to figure all this out on my own.
Yeah, 100%. And especially someone that's gone through it themselves that kinda
Right.
understands where you're coming from. Oh my
Yeah.
goodness, I can talk about the gut all day long. Like, I love it. Absolutely love it. So, I love ending the show with a question. So,
Mhm.
what is one thing that someone can do today to support the health of their microbiome?
So the one thing that I always focus on is kind of twofold. If you add in more fiber, because like I said, the microbiome digests fiber, so they need that in order to thrive. And if you cut back a little bit on all the processed foods, gluten, sugar, dairy, those are the main ones that I always focus on. But, everybody's unique and trying to, figure out your own triggers, like I said, can be difficult, but it's always good to start just adding in more veggies, fruits, cutting out the bad foods that are causing triggers. And yeah, that always kind of gets things started and then going from there.
Oh, I love it. Oh, thank you so much for coming on the show, Krista. I
Thank
think,
you.
yeah, it's just so amazing that we were connected. You're all the way far, far away. Um, and it's just so
We're
nice.
we're totally different days right now.
Oh, I know you're still Sunday night and I'm
Yeah,
Monday. I'm already halfway through my day, like
yeah.
on a Monday. But
I'm,
I
like,
just
getting
want
ready to make dinner.
Yeah, I know you're getting ready for dinner, ready for bed. But I just
Oh,
wanted to acknowledge you for the work that you do with your clients and, just showing them that there is another way. I think that that's just so important. So thank you for sharing all that you share and all that you do and for coming on the podcast. So please share with everyone where they can find you.
so I'm pretty much everywhere at Krysta Harcus. I'm on Facebook, Instagram. My website is all at Krysta Harcus. And yeah, I'm on YouTube as well.
Yep.
That's my YouTube channel.
Yep, that's right. Yes, so we'll put all of that in the show notes so you can check Krista out. But yeah, I've been following you on Instagram and I love the value that you share. So
Thanks.
keep it up. Thank you so much. I'm looking forward to having another chat with you. This was so much fun.
Yes, definitely.